Hi, I'm Dr. Jerry Jampolsky.
And I'm Dr. Diane Cerencioni Jampolsky with another Attitudinal Healing Moment coming to you from Attitudinal Healing International.
We had an amazing experience being asked to come to Tonga several years ago uh, and introduce them to a project around aging with attitude. And while we were there, the facilitator's mother was having a party, a birthday party for her mom in another island, and invited us to come. It's a very small island, I think around 1,000, 1,200 people.
Right, it's the island of Hunga. Tonga is the beautiful country of Tonga is made up of many, many islands, and this wasn't a place where tourists went. In fact, when we went by boat, there wasn't actually even a dock. We just got out of the boat and walked into the water and up to the island, and it was a life-changing experience to be with a community of people that were so communal.
It's a community that saw everyone as their brother and sister. And this community had no telephone. They had a payphone at one time, but it broke about 5 years previously.
And nobody thought it was important enough to fix.
They have no police department.
Well, remember we asked, we said, what do you do when there's a problem here and someone steals something? And they looked at us like, they said, well, actually, nobody would have any reason to steal here. I said, but what happens if somebody has something that somebody else wants? They said, well, in our culture, you would just ask the person for it and then they give it to you. We were like stunned into silence.
So there's no issue around ownership. It's a community where everyone really surrendered to love and really meant that everyone was their brother and sister. And it was amazing to see the kind of harmony and love that was generated. And that particular island, which is so small, they had two different people at different times. The minister, one was the Minister of Health.
Right.
And I think the other was Minister of Education.
Yes, right.
And so it was a big lesson that nothing's impossible. You know, we think we live in this ego world where we're always going to be fighting and there's always going to be conflict and nothing's fair all the time. And here these people were so peaceful. They were one of the most peaceful people and happy people that we've ever met.
And it wasn't so much that they were really isolated because they went to the other islands to get educated. Sometimes they went to New Zealand, they went to Australia, came back after their education, but they just had some really core values that everyone was equally as valuable and that they had ways of dealing with perceived conflict. They just went, what is the result that we want here? And let us just achieve that together.
So what would happen if each of us saw everyone as our brother and sister, really saw them in a spiritual sense, not necessarily a religious sense, but in a spiritual sense? I think we'd find the world quite different. So much depends on our belief system, Diane, and these people believed in love and compassion and helping each other. And everyone was an extension of themselves.
And one of the key things I noticed is that they weren't giving to get. They weren't measuring what people did. We said, well, how do you dole out the chores? I mean, you have animals here, you have a life here. And they said, well, everyone just sort of figures out what they can do and then they do it. And we said, well, is that enough? And they said, yes. I guess it's enough.
So this stimulated us to do our best to live in this world where everyone is your brother and sister, to do our best to do as they do in this small little island of living with unconditional love. And they certainly don't make judgments. I don't think they had to use the word forgiveness because they don't hold any grudges.
Right. Well, we asked how they dealt with their conflicts, and they said, we just talk about it, and then we resolve it. And simplicity is difficult for our confused minds to understand.
So we hope you go inside and seeing this example and hopefully start to believe that it's possible to create a world where there is peace and harmony.